Mr. Ebinger, although he's a native of Fitchville and New London, he spent many days here in Greenwich with his grandparents, Betty and Bud Chandler, Dale and Jean Ebinger, and their large extended families. Eric is the author of 6 books. He now lives in Heartland Township. Would you welcome Eric Ebinger, please?
Good morning, everyone. I am deeply honored to be here in a village that I claim, along with North Fairfield, as my second hometown, as it were once densely populated with Ebingers, Chandlers, and Westbrooks. I am not a soldier, and I am not a veteran, but as this ceremony brings us together to remember fallen comrades, fallen family members, fallen neighbors, and fallen friends, it is my solemn duty to follow in the verbal footsteps of Abraham Lincoln and honor our soldiers who paid the ultimate price with what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion. Our history books ask us to memorize numbers and dates as if on the national Richter scale of importance, the number of men and women who died for our country and the dates of those battles will ingrain in our memory the valor and honor and service which we remember today. Dates and numbers, they ask us to remember. Dates such as September 17th, 1862, when the Battle of Antietam took place. Numbers such as 22,000 killed or wounded that day. Our history books ask us to remember dates. Dates which symbolize war, like 1917. Our history books ask us to remember the number, 53,000 killed in combat in World War I. Our history books ask us to remember dates, some, as you know, that live in infamy, like December 7th, 1941. And then they ask us to remember numbers, like 291,000 men and women killed in combat in World War II. Our history books ask us to remember dates, like June 25th, 1950, when the Korean War began. And they ask us to remember numbers like 33,000 killed in action in Korea. Our history books ask us to remember dates, like January 30th, 1968, and the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. And then they ask us to remember numbers, like the 58,000 men and women who were killed in combat in Vietnam over 15 years. Dates: January 17th, 1991, in Operation Desert Storm. Numbers: 149 killed in that conflict. And our own memory now forces us to remember dates like September 11th, and we can't help but remember numbers like 2,996 who died in New York City, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania, and the 5,790 men and women of the armed forces who have died in that response. Here in Greenwich, on Memorial Day, we remember dates and numbers, but we recognize those numbers have names. And those names are fathers, brothers, sons, and neighbors. And the dates, yes, we remember the dates, but we also remember the dates our boys last sat at the kitchen table, the dates we last heard their voice. We remember the dates the sons of Greenwich were laid to rest. As a nation, we remember numbers. As a community, we remember names. It is increasingly difficult, though, in our present society to fully grasp the painful toll the sacrifice of our soldiers have made. Those who fell valiantly on the fields of battle or later died of their injuries. Those who struggled upon coming home and made the lonely choice to end their lives. And those who carry with them for the rest of their lives the memories of the good, the bad, and the very, very ugly. I wanted very much to include in this speech the names of the sons of Greenwich who gave their lives so that we might enjoy the freedom of liberty. But for every name I speak, I have a personal danger that I would leave someone else out, and that I cannot only name I believe I can be forgiven to speak today is that of my Grandpa Dale, whose experience in World War II I have revealed before in this town, but I ask for one more time. 73 years ago, on Decoration Day as it was called then, Dale Ebinger woke at 4:30 a.m. to the sounds of bombs exploding all around Falmouth, England. German bombers had followed Allied bombers back to England, and when the balloons, which were set as a blockade, were moved so that the Allies could come back, the Germans quietly followed them in. Dale Ebinger was lucky that night on two accounts. First, he had been assigned to patrol the beach, but one of his comrades asked him to trade nights so he could attend a birthday party the next day. That man was killed. And then the Hotel Bascom, which housed our American troops preparing for D-Day just 1 week later, was bombed twice. Once in the rear, which exploded the back half of the hotel and killed 18 of Dale Ebinger's comrades. A bomb also fell in the front of the building, but miraculously it did not explode, and Dale Ebinger slept just feet away. Dale Ebinger lost 18 of his friends that morning, men who were not killed by where they stood in battle, but where they laid their head at night. Killed standing guard a night early, so they might enjoy a birthday party of a good friend. All across this nation, Memorial Day services include those 18 men that Dale Ebinger helped clear out of the rubble. They are not numbers. They are names with faces and families and neighbors and friends. This is not a video game. This is not a movie. This, for some, is an inescapable memory. I left a store yesterday, and the clerk actually said to me, "Happy Memorial Day." I understand what she meant, but are we so far removed from reality that Memorial Day has become parallel to all those other silly social media holidays that celebrate the ridiculous in our lives? I'd like to think the sons of Greenwich did not die so that we might celebrate National Pancake Day. And they did not die so that some overpriced football player in San Francisco can use his celebrity to kneel for the national anthem and make some kind of statement. Here in Greenwich, we stand. Here in Greenwich, we stand for the fact the sons of Greenwich were cut down, and we will always remember them. Today and every day, we honor them. They are not numbers, they are names. I wish to close with the words of President Lincoln. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those here who have gave their lives, that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, and we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is for us, rather, to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.